Welcome everybody. I'm Suzanne, and this is Suzanne Off the Cuff number 24. And today we're going to be talking more about my bottom-up drop shoulder tutorial. And I have two special guests who I'll invite in one by one in just a few minutes. I have my son-in-law Victor and my husband Carl, and I'm going to use them to demonstrate how to measure a man for a bottom-up drop shoulder. I also have a variety of questions from from Ravelry that I'll answer. And you can also submit questions here in the chat just by putting the word question in all caps and then follow it by your question. I'm willing to answer any questions. Sometimes I may not know the answer. Sometimes I think I know the answer and I don't really, but I give it my best shot. So hello everybody. Looks like there's quite a few people on here already. And we're going to start right off by having my son-in-law Victor come in, and I'm going to use him as a model. Now, go ahead and come on in, Vic, and you can stand right here. So this is the form that is in the tutorial, and I'm just going to follow right along on this form to get Vic's measurements. Vic is my son-in-law. Okay. So we're going to start out by getting his back neck measurement. So I'm going to have you turn this way, just like that. So the back neck is the width from side to side. I'm just going to take a measuring tape. You could use anything and hang it around the neck, the base of the neck. And you want these coming down straight. And then you measure the distance between them. So for Vic, I get 5 inches exactly. So that's the back neck width. Then the next measurement we want to get is the bust or chest. So it's just under the arms, measuring around the chest at this point. And you want to make sure, turn sideways a little bit, that you're not going, that the back is, that you're horizontal this way. Okay, go ahead and turn back. And I get 40 inches there. Then the next measurement is going to be the waist. On a man, you're not going to expect a lot of difference. Vic, it's 36. And then you're going to get the hips. Now, it's like a woman. You want to measure the hips at the point where he wants the bottom of his sweater to come. How long do you like your sweaters, Vic?
Probably
right below your belt?
Yeah.
So we're going to measure below his belt. And that's 39. The next measurement is going to be his upper arm. So we're going to measure right here. Or we can use 1/4. He was 40 inches around the chest. Half of that is 20. So the width would be 20. Like the front of his sweater would be 20 plus ease. The back would be 20 plus ease. From the midpoint of the back neck, turn all the way around. For determining where we would want the upper arm measurement, we want to measure from the middle of the back of the neck 1/4 of the distance of the circumference of the chest plus ease. So let's say he's going to have 4 inches of ease. That's 44. Divided by 1/4 is 11 inches. So from here down his arm, 11 inches. This is where we would want to measure on his arm right here for the upper arm. So we're going to use that measurement. This is a drop shoulder, not a set-in sleeve. So that measurement, I get 14. Now, if you were going to do a modified drop shoulder, you would be using closer to the actual armhole. And on Vic, that is 21. So there's a big difference between 21 and 14 in determining the width of the top of the sleeve. So that's the upper arm. Now we want to get the wrist. Vic is 6.5. If you wanted 3/4, you'd measure here. If you wanted short sleeves, you'd measure up here. Then we're going to measure the back neck to the waist, from here down to his waist, and I get 18. And then from the back neck down to below his belt, which is where he wants his sweater length, I get 23 inches. Then we're going to measure the arm length. And again, you're going to use the back neck up here, the center back neck over the shoulder. You have him bend his arm gently over the shoulder, over the elbow, down to the wrist to get the arm length. Now that's not how long your sleeve's going to be. The sleeve's going to be that length, which is K on the form to fill out, minus the 11 inches here. So what did we get for your sleeve length? Let's see. I got 33 minus 11, so his actual sleeve length that you're going to knit would be 22 inches. Okay? And then, and that's all for Vic. Okay? So Vic is a nice young man, slim and trim. So we're going to switch him out for my second model. So go ahead and go on out. Come on in, Carl. Put your feet right there. This is Carl. This is my husband. And I've knit him a lot of sweaters. And they fit pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on him. We're going to get the back neck measurement by hanging the tape around the back neck, measuring the distance between the two parallel lines. And I get 5.5. Then we're going to do a chest measurement. Get 49, a waist measurement, 48. And how long do you like your sweaters to be? Where would you like it to come to?
Right there.
Okay. And then the bottom of the sweater. And that is 47.5. Then the next measurement we're going to get is his upper arm. So what did we get here? We got 48. Let's say we're going to add 4 inches of ease, so that would give us 52. Divided by 4
13
would be 13 inches. So turn it all the way around. So we know that the garment is going to come across this way from here to here, 13 inches, all the way across from here to here. From here to here is going to be 26 inches. So let's measure the 13 inches over so we know where to get his upper arm measurement. And Carl, that's here. Turn this way a little bit. Right here. That's where the drop shoulder is going to come to. So that's where we're going to measure on his arm. That gives us 15. Let's do his armhole. And we get 21. Again, a big difference. So if you made this part of the sleeve 21 inches around, it would be really big. Because we've already taken ease into consideration in that measurement. So let's see, the next is the wrist. And Carl has 8 inches. Then we're going to measure the back neck to the waist. I get 18 to the length of the sweater. I get like 22.5. Then we're going to measure the arm length from here. And put your arm like this. Just the reason you bend the elbow a little bit is because when you knit, that's 33. If you didn't bend the elbow and you measured straight down here, let's see what we get without bending it. At 32. So without bending it, if you knitted it to that length, then anytime you moved your arm like this, your sleeve's going to pull up like this. So by measuring your arm with it not bent like this, but slightly bent, it gives you that little bit of extra so that your sleeve doesn't pull up when you bend your arm. Okay, and that's all we need. So again on him, so we got 33 inches from here to here, and we know that from here to here is 13, right? So the sleeve itself is going to be knit between his wrist and the top of the drop shoulder. So that would give you 20 inches. His sleeve would be 20 inches long. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Let's see if we have any questions on that. Oh, hello Diane and Kelly. Teresa M. Lildahl from Astoria, Susan Day, Dorian, Leslie, hello, Nancy Porter, Kathy, Francoise, Kurt, Sue Mills, Sylvia, Demetria, Elizabeth, Carol, Pat, Maureen, Diana, Mary Inman, Dolise, and a few more people. Yay! Welcome to the group. So, let's see. Let me see if there's any questions. Okay, the first question is, do you have any idea when the sloper video will be posted? Real soon. I have it all. It's just editing. It's just editing it that I've got to do that. It's all videoed. I just have to put it together into the video format. So soon, and maybe tomorrow. Today I'm finishing part 2 of the tutorial, and I'm almost done with it. It'll go to Francoise this evening. So it should be ready in the next day or so to send out to everybody. And it's a lot because it covers the whole fronts, which includes, I'm including 4 different styles of pockets. And that's a huge amount of work. So it has the bottom ribbing, it has the pockets, it has waist shaping, bust shaping, and then it has a crew neck shaping or V-neck shaping. And so all of that is in the next portion of the tutorial that should come out very soon. Okay, so let's see, there was another question. And that is D. She says, any pointers you could provide on working a split hem would be fantastic. Yes. If you want to do a split hem, then you need to work those edge stitches, and not as selvage stitches, but as edge stitches. And what I do when I'm working, let me see if I have any samples nearby. I do. It's very small, but maybe you'll get the idea. Okay, so here is the bottom of a button band, okay? And this part right here is going to be an edge, right? It's not going to be sewn to anything. It's not going to be a seam. There's no stitches picked up from it. It's an edge. And I worked this in knit 1, purl 1, a twisted rib design. So on the very edge, I didn't do knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. I did knit 2 because that allows the very edge stitch, the one that is the first knit column, to actually curl under a little bit, and it makes that nice edge. So that one column of knits is facing forward. If I only did one column of knits, that would tend to curl back, or curl forward because the next stitch is a purl, and you would not get that nice edge. So if you were having this on the bottom of your ribbing, let's say this is the buttonhole side, let's say that's the ribbing coming down on the front, a split hem, you would want to have an extra column of knits right here. No matter what your design is here, no matter what kind of ribbing you have, your selvage stitch should be a knit column. Now, if it turns out that that's what you were going to do in your ribbing anyway, then it should be fine if you've already knitted it. But let's say your ribbing is knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You would want to end with a knit 3 on that edge. That edge stitch would be an extra column of knits. So that allows it to curl to the back, and it would still have 2 knits facing forward. So it would give you a continuous design. It wouldn't look like it was broken half. I hope that makes sense. If you're doing a knit 1, purl 1 ribbing such as this, then you would have 2 knits at the edge. If you're doing knit 2, purl 2, you would have 3 knits at the edge. If you're doing knit 3, purl 3, you would have 4 purls at the edge. Does that make sense? I mean, 4 knits at the edge. I hope that makes sense. That's what I would do. And those would be selvage stitches, but they would curl back, and then up in the body of your garment, you're going to have that knitted selvage stitch anyway, but it's going to be consumed in the seam. So it'll all come out just perfectly. You would just seam down to the point where you want your sweater to split, and you would stop seaming at that point, or start seaming. And one of the things I do, if you've watched any of my seaming videos, I show you how to make a figure 8 at the start of the seam and a figure 8 at the end of the seam, which locks it and keeps it from coming undone. Okay? So let's see. Yes, Diane Danko says, don't forget to give thumbs up. Yay! Thumbs up. Let's see if there's any more questions over here. That was D. Vera, question, will you go over placing, matching the measurements to the schematic? Yes, and guess what? I drew these really crude pictures of the schematic with all the measurements on it, and Francois's husband has converted it into beautiful images, and it will be included when you get part 2. All of the previous schematics will be replaced with his version, which is really nice. I also added a lot of information to the seaming and how to figure out what kind of stitch, how to place your ribbing so it comes out perfect across the seam. For example, in this sweater, I have across the bottom of my sweater here, I have a knit 2 purl 2 design. Do you see that? The seam is right here. Let me mark it. I'll put I can put a very thin needle through this where the seam is. There's the seam. So this is a knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. So you can see that the design is not interrupted. And that's by pre-planning. That's actually called finishing, and you do that before you start. So you're going to, it's all explained in there. Here you can see the seam on the inside. So you can see where the knit stitch from each side was consumed in the seam, so it doesn't show on the face of the fabric. But on the face of the fabric, you get, holding this up in reverse is not easy. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, so yes, there's a video on that. I think I have a video on everything. Nancy Porter, split hem again. Do both front and back end with an extra knit stitch. Yes, front and the back, both pieces. It allows it to curl under. And the front and back don't have to be the same length. You know, the back can be longer than the front, or the front can be longer than the back. It's up to you. It's your sweater. Anita B, question, I'm making the cardigan for myself, but I don't have anyone to help me with the measurements. How do I go about it? Well, there's an alternative method, and that is to find a piece of clothing that you really like how it fits and lay it out and measure it. If you don't have something that you really like how it fits, then go to the store and take a bunch of clothing into the dressing room, different sizes, different styles and things, and try them on until you find something that you like how it fits. It doesn't have to be the same style, but what you're looking for is the circumference around the chest, how much ease is involved, the length. So it doesn't really matter the style. You're looking for just some basic measurements. Take it in. I lay it on the floor of the dressing room. I take a measuring tape with me. I lay the measuring tape out, and I take pictures so that I have a record of it for when I go home. Okay. Let's see. Kathy, question. Continuing on for split hem, what type of edge stitch would you use if the split continues beyond the ribbing? I would still continue with that extra knit. So I would have 2 knits along the edge. One that's going to curl under, just as if you were seaming. Just the natural propensity of stockinette stitch is to curl to the back side. You want to use that trait because it gives a nice smooth edge down the side. And it looks finished without doing any finishing. It almost gives you like an I-cord edge. Do not do slipped stitches. Just have that extra column. The column that would be your selvages for seaming is now going to become your edge stitch. And then it will turn into the selvage stitch above that where you use it for seaming. So the selvage stitch will curl back to the back for the seaming. The edge stitch will curl to the back to give you a nice finished edge on the edge of your fabric. Does that answer your question? If not, ask some more. Give me more specifics. Okay, I'm going to go over to the Ravelry questions. This is from Lindy Beer. Question, when decreasing from the hip to the waist for this sweater, is it better to plan your decreases to start with the bottom band, or should you begin the decreases before that? I would not do any of decreases in the ribbing section or your bottom band. I would start them right above that. So they would be distributed between the top of the band and the bottom of your waist. If your sweater is really long, like, past your hips, you wouldn't start the decreases for the waist shaping until you were about 3 inches below the waist. Okay, and then Margaret, she's having a problem with ease because she has a very large bust, and she went with the 10% recommendation for increasing the ease, and she feels that it's too large, and it very well may be, and I almost feel like I need to reknit your sweater for you to help you. If you lived close to me, I'd probably do part of it for you. It's too large for her. So in this case, Margaret, what I would do is what I recommended just a minute ago, is going through your closet and finding something that you like the ease. You like how it hangs on you, and measure that, and that would be your goal to accomplish that circumference. Okay? It's always good to fall back. That's why I have the video coming out on making the slopers, because it's nice to try it on before you knit it. Once you knit it, that's a tremendous amount of effort and work to go in and find out that you don't like it, and I'm really sorry. This is Jane Socks. Question, in the previous live stream, Kurt said he'd knitted a sleeve gusset in a knitted flat sweater. Yes, and I had that out to discuss last time, and I forgot to. It's in this book, Knitting Ganseys by Beth Brown Renzel. Remember, we had her on here a few weeks ago. It's called Knitting Ganseys. On page 56 and 57, 56, there's the underarm gusset that you want to know about. And yes, it is possible to do it in a project that is knitted flat. So if you do not have this book, I recommend getting it. She works the front and the back as you would, and then she makes the gusset and fits it in second. Okay? All right. This is from Vivian Slike. Question, can your current tutorial bottom-up drop shoulder pullover or cardigan be done in the round or constructed in pieces only? If you want to convert it to being knit in the round and you know how to do that, yes, you can do that. You would just leave out the selvage stitches and you could convert it to knitting in the round. That's all you have to do. I'm not going to write instructions for that because it might be confusing for people who aren't knitting it in the round. But if you want to convert something that's knit flat to in the round, you just leave out the selvage stitches and you knit it, all the pieces, one after the other. If you have something that's knit round in the round and you want to knit it flat, you do the opposite. At the sides and the front, you add selvage stitches. That's the only difference. Okay. Art Lady says, this is Delee, she says, she wants to know about the meaning of the directions on page 49 of Ann Budd's book on sweater patterns. And I've got that out here. This is the book she's talking about. Ann Budd's book, Handy Book of Sweater Patterns. This is page 49 for the drop shoulder. And the instructions that she's talking about is for size 48. Okay, so the instructions say drop shoulders and back neck, shape shoulders and back neck. Bind off all stitches. That means bind off all the way across. But she wants you, while you're binding them off, to mark the first 18 stitches and the last 18 stitches. So you bind off the first 18, you put a marker, you bind off until 18 are left, put another marker. Then the next row says for each shoulder, the remaining stitches for the back neck. That tells you how many stitches are between those two markers. So for her size, she would have 18 stitches here for the shoulder, 18 stitches here, and 32 stitches for the back neck. It's all one line. It's not 3 rows. Okay? That's easy to misinterpret. I can see how it could be misinterpreted. And then this is from Dynasty. Question, what do you think about the ribbing on the bottom of the sweater being deeper than the ribbing on the cuffs? That's fine. You can make it any length you want because it's your sweater. Whatever looks proportional to you. I was thinking I'd like 4 inches of ribbing on the bottom, but I'm pretty sure I'd only want 3 inches at most on the cuff. And I wasn't sure if this is a thing. That would be fine. It would look lovely. It would look very, very nice. Okay, let's see what else is over here. Some more people have asked some questions. This is Mary Shue. How far do we bind off for a modified drop sleeve? Pattern says 1 to 2 inches. Does it depend on our stitch pattern? Do we bind off all the stitches for that in one row? Now, which row are you talking about, Mary Shue? How far do we bind off for a modified drop sleeve? Are you talking about the bind off that's going to be down here? It depends on how far in you want your modified drop sleeve. If you want it to come in 1 inch, you would bind off 1 inch of stitches. You need to know your stitch gauge and just bind it off. Don't bind it off in pattern. Don't do anything special because you're going to be seaming those stitches to the sleeve stitches later on. And you just bind off and then you work across the back. You're talking about the back, I'm showing on the front of me. And you knit to the end. Then you turn and you bind off the next set of stitches for the other modified drop shoulder. So you can't really do it in one row because think about it. If you bound off your stitches here, worked all the way across, and then bound off here, your working yarn would be at the end. You'd have to break it to come back and knit these stitches back this way, wouldn't you? So the way you do that when you're binding off for underarms is you bind off here, those stitches, let's say it's 10 stitches. You bind off 10 stitches, work all the way across here, work to the end of the row, turn, bind off 10 stitches, then work to the end. Now you've got 10 bound off stitches on either side, okay? They're offset by 1 row, but that is not visible. No one will be able to tell. And that's standard knitting instructions. Okay. Chris Ma, question, how do I see how much ease a finished sweater has? Would it need to be approximately the same gauge as I want to make? No. What you would do is you would measure your chest circumference. Then you would measure that garment. Let's say my chest circumference is 38 inches. And you would divide that in half, right? Because you're just going to measure straight across something. You're not going to measure around it. So 38 divided by 2 is 19. So if I lay a garment down that I like how it fits, and I lay it down and it measures 20, then I know it has 2 inches of ease. Because if you multiply 20 by both sides, that's 40. I'm 38, it's 40. That means it has 2 inches of ease. Does that make sense? Doesn't have anything to do with your stitch gauge. It's just measurements. If I'm 38 and I lay it down and it measures 42, it measures 21 inches across, that means it's 42 in circumference. It's, and that would give me 4 inches of ease. So you find something you like how it fits. Like I like how this shirt fits. And you can see it's probably got 4 inches of ease because I can pull it out that much over here and the same amount on this side. This probably has 4 inches of ease on it. If I like that and that's how I want my sweater to fit, then I would do my swatch, figure out how many stitches I have to the inch in my swatch. And let's say I want 40 inches, so it'd be 20 across. 20 times stitches per inch will tell me how many stitches I need to cast on. Okay? And you can fudge a stitch or two here and there to make your stitch pattern work. Let's say that you end up with 85 stitches, but for your stitch pattern to work, you need 82 or 88. Just change it to one of those. That little bit of difference isn't going to make any difference in how your sweater fits. Okay. Oh, Chris Moss says, I think I get what you mean with ease. I had been thinking this also meant the ease you get through fiber and stitch. No, this is just yes, exactly. We're just thinking two different things. But what I want you to do is figure out how comfortable do you want your garment to be on you? Do you want it tight? Do you want it really loose? Do you want it huge, boxy? Did I show you those two sweaters? I don't think I did, but they're not in here. I'm not going to go get them. Okay, Nina, Leslie Dunn. Question, is the next section of the pattern going to address how you'd finish the back if you're doing a saddle? Yes, it's all written in there. I assume you'd want to subtract half the width of your saddle from the total height. Yep, that's all in there. Yeah. So the second section is huge. It's like all of the rest of it together does not equal the second section. The second section is like the body of the whole work. And it'll come out real soon. I've been typing and typing and thinking and thinking. You know, I have to go back and I make corrections. I try to be so clear because I can understand exactly what I'm trying to say. But in order to make sure that you can understand what I'm saying, I have to give it time and let it settle and go back and look at it over and over. Okay, are there any other questions? This might be only a half an hour long today. Anybody else have any other questions? Oh, I want to tell you while I'm here, this Saturday at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be interviewing Ann Budd. Can you believe that? So exciting! So you're not going to want to miss that. And you can ask her the questions you want to ask. In fact, it would be very nice and help her a lot if you get on my Ravelry group, Knitting with Suzanne Bryant on Ravelry, and there's a thread for asking questions for the live streams. Put your questions on there because I can give them to her in advance so that she can be prepared to answer them. I think that would work really good, and you would get the best answers that way. Of course, you can ask questions live too. But if you're on here, most likely you're also on my Ravelry group. So just get on there and post your questions, and then I'll send them to her, and she can be alerted to the types of questions you're going to be asking, okay? Okay, so this is from Maureen. She says, do we get to decide how far the sleeve drops or say not drop? So you're talking about how far it comes down on your arm? That has to do with how much ease you want around the circumference. Now, Maureen, you should get this because this is a tube. Pretend that your sweater is just a tube, straight up and down. The greater the circumference of the tube, the further it's going to come down on your arm. So if you want it to come way down on your arm, then the tube has to be bigger. If you want it to be up higher on your arm, the tube has to be smaller. Now, how far it comes down on your arm determines how big the sleeve's going to be at the top. If you're drop shoulder, let me go. I have two sweaters. I don't think they're in here already. That are both drop shoulder that are really big. Let me go. I'll be right back. Okay, this is a drop shoulder sweater. Do you see that? It's straight down. And it comes way down to here, the drop shoulder, because I'm 38. This is 52 inches in circumference. And you see how little the arms are? Because the arm doesn't start to here. So it's skinny going down to here. This is another one. This one's even 2 inches wider. Do you see how wide that is compared to how wide I am? But it looks good on. I'm not going to strip this other sweater. It's very similar to this sweater. But this is like lace weight yarn or very light fingering, so it drapes really nicely. But so it's up to you. I like it. I like how it looks. So it's up to you. Now, if I made this out of worsted weight yarn, it would not look like this. I don't think it'd look very good at all. So this is really perfect for me. Okay. Let's see. Here, this is from Jerry. Question, does the update also talk about seaming the side seams, arm, and sleeve to body, especially about matching patterns and the types of seams to make? I do talk about matching patterns because you have to plan that in advance, but I do not talk about seaming because we're going to do that in the seaming section. Right now you're just knitting, but I do talk to you in great detail about the salvage stitches and planning in advance so that your fabric will be contiguous across the seam. That is all involved in there. Then when we get to, so this is the next section. It'll come out tomorrow probably. After that will be the sleeves. It's a piece of cake compared to the body. Then the last section will be doing the button bands, the finishing, the seaming. Actually, you're going to do the blocking first. And I hope you don't block your pieces before then. Wait until we have all the pieces made because I'm going to teach you how to block them. Okay? And then you block them. Then you do your seaming. And then you put on your finishing edges. And you can steam those if you want or do nothing. And then we'll be done. So seaming's not yet. The reason that I release it in pieces is this is literally a book. And if you were to look for someone's new to knitting a garment, if they were to look at the whole thing, it would be mind-boggling, and it could totally turn them off to even starting. This way, you start with the back. The back's pretty straightforward. You do the back, you get it completed, and you can see, you get a snapshot of what the fabric's going to look like. It's pretty exciting. You can put it up to you, see what it looks like, see how you like it. You can make adjustments on the front based upon how you like the back, etc., etc. Okay, this is from Maureen. Yes, she says, so you seem to be suggesting that the drop is related to the ease. Yes, exactly. So the more ease you have, the more it'll drop down your shoulders. So this drops down all the way to here. See that? It drops, here's my elbow. So it drops, it's more than halfway down my arm. You can see right there. Let's see, I think I missed a question. My front neck to hip measurement is 4 inches longer than the back neck to hip. Can I account for that all in bust shaping on the front? Yes, and I talk about that in the bust shaping in this section. So the back and front start with the same number of stitches. Exactly. It's going to be accounted for in short row shaping at the bust. It does not affect the side seam. There will be the same number of rows in the front as the back in the side seam. But the front edge here, this part, will be longer because that's what's going over your bust. Okay, but the side seam will not be elongated, so the sides will match perfectly. Let's see. Lena Matthews says, I measured several of my sweaters of different yarns and was surprised that they measured consistently. Finer yarns measured 40 inches, heavier yarns measured 44. Yes, and you know why? Think about it. So this is a finer yarn. So the outside circumference is very close to the same as the inside circumference because the yarn's not very thick, right? What if I did this in heavier yarn, worsted weight yarn, or even bulky? The yarn itself takes up space. So the inside circumference of the sweater will be smaller than the outside circumference. And when you measure the outside circumference, that's what you're measuring when you're measuring across your fabric, is you're measuring the outside circumference. So that's what gives you the difference in 44 inches versus 40 inches, is the thickness of the yarn itself is creating a larger circumference. Very good. That was excellent. Good teaching point. Sue Mills, question. Suzanne, do you have a favorite sweater that you have made? Can you show us? Well, I like all of my sweaters. This is one, I love this. I wear it a lot. My very favorite one, you know, is my Into the Jungle cardigan. I just love that. And it's drop shoulder. This is totally drop shoulder. I love this. I love the fit. I love how it hangs. And it's Shetland wool, jumper weight yarn with stranded, so it makes it a little bit thicker. But I just love this. But see, now it's the drop shoulders come down to here on this. Right there. There's my seam. There's my shoulder. So the side doesn't come out as far. So the circumference of this is much less. I think it might have 4 or 6 inches of ease. It's stuck to my other sweater. And I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and that makes it hurt. Okay, I'm good. Any other questions? Kurt Payne says, all my sweaters are 40 inches chest, makes for easy calculating for knitting. Yes, if you already know what you like, just, and 40 is perfect because 40 divided by 4 gives you 10 inches here. You know, it's super easy. Okay. Chris Moss says she just watched my short row comparison and she loved it. Thank you very much. So are there any other questions? I'll give you a minute. Let me see if anybody else asked anything over on Ravelry. Nope. I'm actually pretty darn excited because I'm proud of myself because I'm finishing this section 2. It is a tremendous amount of work, but I am empowered and I'm having a full steam ahead. You know, I have to think about it, and think about it. I'm one of those people that things just run around in my mind all night, every night, and I'm like writing it, and then all of a sudden it just comes all out, and it works that way. That's just how I am, and I can't do it any other way. So, anything else? If not, we'll see you here next Saturday. Now, next Wednesday, I'm doing my very best to do a live stream. I'm going to be on the road, but I have a friend that I'm going to stop at her house, and she's allowing me to live stream from her house. So I won't have all my resources. I'll take as much stuff as I can with me, and you'll be probably asking a lot of questions about the front. So on Wednesday next week at 2 o'clock, we'll do this again. This Saturday is going to be Ann Budd. Let me see what's coming up on the schedule after Ann Budd. Let me look on my calendar. Okay, so this is Ann Budd. Then on nobody the following Saturday. I don't have anybody for the 15th. And but I do on the 22nd of February. I have Nathan Taylor on the 22nd of February. So that'll be pretty exciting, especially after having Alistair, because Nathan's probably going to be talking about double knitting too. So yeah, Kurt says if only his arms were shorter. I have that same issue. I have really long arms, so it's like if I had shorter arms, the knitting would go quicker. Anyone else have a question? Okay, so if not, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad I got my son and my son-in-law and my husband on here to show you how to measure man, and I'll see you on Saturday. Okay? Bye-bye.